Howdy everyone. So we're here with a post recording, um, or post commentary at least. Gonna talk about going through Biome 2. This is carrying off from the previous video, so you can see this is the setup that we had on leaving that video. The only thing I've changed is I've added this little green bouncing ball to the wand that I'm going to use for my main combat wand. And I've added that green bouncing ball just so there's a little bit of consistency for ranged targets. So the shotgun is a bit more, it's a bit harder to hit, and so I wanted to have something that was going to be useful for more distant enemies. For enemies like this, it won't be such a big deal. But throughout this video, I'll basically just be talking about things that you might consider as you go through the coal mines. I'll probably try and skirt away as much as possible from just general things like this enemy shoots like this, you know, dodge left or dodge right. Those things aren't particularly important. But yeah, so I'll just point out some things as I go, and there'll be certain points where I'm just doing things like digging, and because they're, you know, rather boring, I've sped up the footage for those moments. Just to make it a bit more bearable. So as you go through the coal mines, you'll see a lot of these puddles of water. They're a pretty common spawn in the coal mines, and they very often have hearts in them. Not always, but it's quite often. And so if you ever see one of those puddles of water but can't see the bottom of it, it's probably very worthwhile checking it out, because you might find a heart in the bottom of it. Now I've left that section of digging in just so I can mention that you know, that's the tool we'll be digging with. It's called a luminous drill. It's one of the better digging tools because it will delete all matter. As far as I know, I don't think there's anything that can stand up to a luminous drill. But its mana cost and the way it digs can be a bit annoying. So it's got some downsides, but it is the best way to dig. At this point in the video, I am just confused as to why I've got 108 health. I now realize it was because I picked up a heart, but at the time I was wondering why I had taken more damage than I thought I had taken. And then just briefly before this, you saw me hovering the mouse over one of those little voids in the rock. That was just a way of suggesting that there's a lot of areas that are sort of sealed off, and so getting as close to them so that you can see in there is quite useful on this stage, because it's got lots of little pockets. You can see here, this is another thing to keep an eye out of, well, for rather, is there's a lot of these pockets of gold that are fairly close to the surface, and they can give you quite a bit of gold. So we're at 192 now. After I use the shotgun, we're at 270. So, you know, quite a bit. 78, considering that one nugget of gold that you get from killing most enemies is worth 10, and we just got 78 from, you know, shooting the ground. You know, there was probably as many shots there as it would take to kill some enemies. So very efficient way to get money. If you can dig at all on this stage. Very, very handy. So you can see here, going around, just using the shotgun again to break through the wood there. I could have gone around to the right, but there's a lot of wooden structures in this place that you can break through. So again, ability to dig is very useful here. And the reason I just pulled out the tablet there is that even on stage 2, using the tablet to get trick kills, much like this one, is quite viable, and you can get a, you know, so that's 20 gold that I otherwise wouldn't have had if I just killed them normally. So you can collect a decent amount of gold just by smacking people with tablets. Even certain enemies, you'll eventually, at some point, I'm sure, see one of the large purple guys. And I think they drop 3 or 4 nuggets of gold normally, which would be 6 or 8 if you kill it with the tablet, and the tablet will normally one-shot those guys. You don't even need to throw it particularly hard. It'll do the trick, and so that could be a great way to take those guys out. I probably don't do it in this just because I'm not really paying as much attention as I maybe should have been. So you can see there though that as I dug, it destroyed the gold. So that's another sort of downside to the luminous drill as a digging tool, is that if you get too close to gold with it, you'll lose it. Video is slowed down here just to show that bit of gold teleported above the little bit of stonework there, or above the coal there. It's a common sort of a problem in this game, is that if gold or certain objects can't spawn where they are because they're blocked by terrain, they'll spawn directly above it. So if you're ever wondering why you've missed out on a bit of gold, or a bit of something has disappeared, maybe a potion's teleported somewhere, or you've broken up a potion and half of the liquid isn't, you've only got half the amount of liquid out of that potion than you expected. It's very, very possible that's because the other half has been teleported to above the bit of terrain. So those guys, quite dangerous, obviously. Spewing lava, you want to avoid that at all costs. Yeah, and you can see here just continuing to farm for as much gold as humanly possible, within reason. Because, yeah, not actually as much as humanly possible, because that would be extraordinarily tedious. This gas here is what occurs when the toxic sludge that the slime enemies produce comes in contact with lava. I think fire also does it, but definitely lava produces that gas, and each pixel of that gas can take off like 1 health. So it's sort of heavily advised you avoid that gas. Whereas when water hits lava, it creates rock. When toxic sludge hits lava, it also creates toxic rock. So not just the gas, but also the rock that solidifies where the lava is will also be toxic, and you will take contact damage from that. And in this stage, there's a lot of toxic, and there's a lot of those firefly bugs that produce lava. So toxic rock on this stage is fairly common. Just speeding up the footage here. I'm starting to head left. So you'll, if you were very astute, you'll have noticed that on entering this stage, I went to the right until I hit the wall, went down, and I've started working left. I was just hovering my mouse there in the wall just to show that that's what I was checking. I was getting really close to that wall because I wanted to see if there was another void that might contain something, because in this stage there are a lot of voids that contain sort of useful things. But yeah, so I moved immediately to the right, then followed the wall down, and then left across the bottom. And what this does is it means that you're more or less always... Enemies can only come from 3 sides. When you're moving across the top, they can only come from left, which you've already been, below you, or to the right of you, which you're looking. If you just go directly down, you tend to find that enemies can come from anywhere, and it can be quite dangerous. Just there, I'm shooting the toxic sludge, which mixes it with the water. That can be a quicker way to neutralize toxic sludge. It's also useful on the first stage when there's the long, thin barrels of pools of toxic sludge, because it can be hard to pour water through it. Again, just checking voids. I'm pretty sure that's the same void as before. And now I'm heading back up. Now the reason I'm heading up now is because I've more or less already been that way. So I've sort of gone to the right, gone down, gone to the left, and then come back up to sort of connect it back up with where I know. So obviously you don't need to do this, but this is just how I do it, in a way that sort of makes it a bit safer. And so now I sort of know that everything to my right is basically safe. There might be the odd enemy there, but I'm now sort of zigzagging up and down as I move left throughout the zone, because I've gone to the right and cleared from there, moving left. And so, you know, that's just how I do it. You'll also see that we'll eventually, as we continue moving left, find the second zone. So I will speak to that second zone actually in a minute. I'll talk about this shop first. So shops can spawn in the zone. They can spawn in any zone as far as I know. They cost gold, just like a normal spell shop, and the spells are randomized, and I'm pretty sure the spells are still relevant to the zone, so you're not going to find end level items or end level spells, end game spells, I suppose. In early game shops, it'll all be relative. In this particular shop, I'm looking at delayed spellcast because that's actually a spell I've not had much experience with, and I wanted to see what it did. If I wasn't recording a run, I'd probably buy that one and do a bit of experimenting. But I buy this orb because energy orb, not energy sphere, energy orb, is an extremely good digging tool. I've got a good digging tool already, but it's kind of hard to dig quickly through certain materials. I'll come back to digging in a moment as well. You'll notice here that as I fight this guy, I focus on the enemies he's thrown out and make sure that none of them get behind me, so that I've always got a place where I can backtrack to. All of the enemies that were there, so the big guy and the little guys, are all melee enemies. So you're fairly safe as long as you keep distance, and yeah. So just trying to make sure that they don't get behind you. That pool of water is another pool of water that tends to spawn loot. And this moment is truly upsetting in that I moved forward thinking that that tablet would kill them, and it didn't. It missed. But yeah, that's why. I shoot this chest here, which unfortunately it hit the potion inside. I wouldn't have taken polymorph anyway, probably. Don't open chests in water. I learnt it the hard way. You can find a chest that contains the lightning rock. I can't remember the name. And if it's in water, as soon as you open the chest, the lightning rock will spark the water, which you are in, and you will be electrocuted, and you can die from this. So try not to do that. Yeah, but anyway, back to the digging. The energy orb, very good at digging through basically all soft terrains. It'll dig through all the rock on this terrain, so it'll dig through the soft, not the coal, but the sort of darker grey, the lighter grey, and the very light grey that you can all see below where I'm at right now. It'll dig through all three of those, which not all spells will do. For example, the shotgun has a really hard time digging through the very light grey, just there. You'll notice that I purified this water as I go. This is just sort of similar to making sure that there aren't enemies behind me, as I like to make sure that water is safe, so that if I have to go back, there's no chance that I'm going to accidentally fall into a puddle of it or damage myself. You can see there, that's the type of hearts that that's the type of puddle I was talking about before, the pond of water. That's the way the hearts normally spawn. Yeah. And so that's why I want that digging spell. It's particularly good. Looking out for digging spells in this game is going to be pretty crucial. And now that I've seen this enemy, so this is bringing us back to what I was talking about with clearing the stage right to left. As you get to the left, you find the second stage. You can see here I'm hovering the mouse over the brickwork to show that the brickwork is ended, and there's dense stone above us now, which means we've basically gone left to the point that we're about to hit the next zone, which, so in the first one, you go from the mines and you progress left, you hit the collapsed mines. In the second zone, you go from the coal mines, and if you progress left, you hit the Fungal Caverns. So this is a zone that's got a lot of very dangerous enemies. It's a big step up. I think we're about to see one now. Yeah. So this is one of the Terminators. Just run out of flight juice, so I couldn't fly. And then I was trying to decide where I wanted to dig out. I was gonna just dig myself an escape route here, but then as I got through, I sort of realized it was taking too long, and he backed off, so I thought, okay, I'll just go up. But yeah, very dangerous enemies, especially dangerous considering your sort of level at this point. Like that's primarily why they're so dangerous, is just because you're really unlikely to be anywhere near powerful enough to be going through the Fungal Caverns with any sort of confidence at this point in the game. So you can see here I'm looking for the enemy that was shooting those blue orbs at me, that was teleporting around. I'd like him to die first. He is an enemy that will teleport you, so those blue orbs, if they hit you, will make you teleport randomly within a fairly large radius. He's probably the most dangerous, because if he hits you with a teleport and you teleport into the Fungal Caverns, you can then be stuck, you know, in an area where there's extremely dangerous enemies, and you're, you know, there between you and getting back to the coal mines. Another detail about that, about getting back to the coal mines when you're going to bother checking the Fungal Caverns, is that because you may come out of there at very low health, it's kind of advisable to clear a route to the teleporter. So I know that I'm quite low to the bottom of the map here. You're about to see me use explosives. Explosives on robots are very, very strong. Robots can really give you a hard time. They're hard to freeze, which is a common way of killing enemies, like freezing them and then meleeing them, like tough enemies, that is. Explosions do extra damage versus machines. So that's a good bit of advice, which you use more for the third stage and onwards. But something to consider. But yeah, I know that I'm quite close to the bottom of the zone here. So if I run into trouble in the Fungal Caverns and I have to back out, I know that I'm not going to sort of back out into just a horde of enemies. As I explore here, I find a chest. So this is another reason why you check those voids in the map, is because you can often find loot in there. And I step back because I want to shoot the chest first, because as you can see there, that chest had a health bar. It wasn't in fact a chest, it was a mimic. Very Dark Souls-esque, but I'm not going to complain. And so I've progressed now high enough that I've hit the roof. So this is not advisable. This is me being more or less reckless. So you should try to enter the Fungal Caverns from the bottom, if possible, so that, like I was saying, you can back out into safe mines and a teleporter if you need it. But I couldn't resist. So, especially because I've also just now seen a wand. I'm now looking at the stats on that wand and seeing that it's got high mana regen, which the Luminous Drill is a very high mana cost wand, so I'm bringing that because I think I might be able to create a better digging wand in the future, even though the mana on this wand is quite good. It's also for the shot bolts. I think it's probably more for the shot bolts than for the mana regen. just because I want extra ones of them. And this moment here has the potential to go very badly. I didn't notice that enemy is a swapper, so you trade places with them whenever you shoot them. And if I had shot him and he was, in a more dangerous position, I might have swapped and found myself again in the middle of the Fungal Caverns, surrounded by enemies. So that could have gone a lot worse than it did. You'll notice I think I got frozen by one of the enemies in here. And I think this is the point where I realize I shouldn't be fooling around. Teleportium, I can't risk touching that, even though the enemy's dead. Is the enemy dead? I think he might have actually just teleported away. But I can't risk touching Teleportium, because it again will take me further into the Fungal Caverns. So I poke my nose in, I check that flask. It's not something I want. Concentrated mana is useful, I think, but I haven't found, it's better way to put it is, it's not detrimental. Like, it serves a purpose, it gives you mana, but I haven't found a good reason to use it. It's not something that you can bring with you to a later stage to get better, to get some sort of effect, like you can with a blood potion or a pheromone potion, things like that. So it's not something I want to bring. But yeah, so you see again, I realized that I was a bit too high into the Fungal Cavern, so I've backed away and made my way to the teleporter, and now I'm going in from a much more reasonable spot. I'm now at the sort of spot where if my 61 health becomes, much lower, I'm safe to back out. And again, I'm right next to the bottom of the stage, so any enemies can only really come from one direction. If there's earth above me, they're only going to come from the left, which is why I'm creeping forward here, just checking out what's at the end of this tunnel, and it tapers off to a sealed room, so I know I'm safe now. I haven't also explained why you might wish to go to the Fungal Caverns, considering how dangerous it is. It's primarily because of the wand density. There's a lot, you tend to find a lot of wands in very close proximity in the Fungal Caverns. Fungal Caverns can be found to the left of other zones as well, further down the map. But the wands tend to, where they are now, for example, on Biome 2, going to the left, the ones you'll find in this Fungal Cavern are probably better than what you have. So you can see here, there's a wand, lots of spells. The stats arguably are probably going to be, in this wand they're not, but on average they'll be around the sort of level you're looking for. So it's kind of useful to go to the Fungal Caverns on Biome 2. Anything further, so for example, you can go to the Fungal Caverns on the jungle, which is quite deep. That then, it's less beneficial because they don't scale it's as if it's got the same wands on the Fungal Caverns that are 5 layers deep as the ones I'm seeing here, which isn't great. Obviously, when you're in the jungle, you're going to be finding wands that are amazing quality compared to the Fungal Caverns, which are comparable to these wands. So this is one of the few times where it's actually really worthwhile checking out the Fungal Caverns if you've got the health to do so. The reason I threw that dynamite before is I was just checking if I could fire that wand safely. So I sort of examined the spells and what sort of order they would fire in, if the wand was a shuffle wand or not. I'm pretty sure this one isn't a shuffle wand, so I could predict reliably what would happen when I press the trigger. The later into the game you go, the less you want to do that. Eventually, as I get fucked by wasps, eventually the wands end up with so many spells on them and so many triggers and different modifiers that it's kind of hard to tell what will happen when you shoot a wand. And a lot of the time it'll summon something that'll kill you, or it'll blow you up, or you'll it'll have more knockback than you expect. So using untested wands can be really dangerous. So that's why I spent that little bit of time just now sort of examining what this wand would do, just so I knew if I was in dire straits, could I use that TNT effectively. So you can see here, I'm shooting up into this hive. The wasps I was killing weren't dropping gold, which means they have been spawned by something like this, some hive. Anytime an enemy doesn't drop gold, I say anytime, pretty sure it's anytime, there's a couple of enemies that will spawn from hives like this. The little black guys that you see on the first stage, the little spider looking fellas, they can come from hives also. And yeah, if they're not dropping gold, it's probably because they're coming from a hive. So they intentionally don't drop gold. Those guys, the little spider guys up the top that I was shooting. If they don't drop gold, it's probably because they come from a hive. Because if they did drop gold, you could infinitely farm gold from the hive. So I knew that there was going to be a hive in there somewhere, so I came in to try and find it, and yeah, killed it. You'll also notice that the way this wand works, because of its low mana, the green orb, the bouncing something, can't even remember what they're called, I just call it the green bouncing ball. When it runs out of mana, it stops firing the shotgun and starts firing those green balls rapidly. That can be kind of handy, having a wand that functions in two different ways. At the very least, if it's not going to be useful to you to have a wand that functions in two different ways, at the very least know what it does when it runs out of mana. So I knew that this wand, when it runs out of mana to fire the shotgun, I can still spam those little green orbs at things, which is, you know, that has some use. It's still a viable wand, even if it's a bit weaker. This enemy can one-shot you if they freeze you and then hit you with a tentacle. It's like shattering your frozen body effectively, and it's not a one-shot kill, but it will one-shot up to a HP that is way higher than I have. So I opt to back away. This is probably one of the most important bits of advice that you can have in Noita, and it's something that I'm frankly quite bad at because I get greedy, is know when to go. Like, know when it's not worth it. At this point, I'm just looking for gold. I know the stage to the right is pretty clear. So I can get some gold by digging without any risk to my health. But to stay in the Fungal Caverns at 33 HP, especially with enemies like that one-shot guy, like he could kill me at full health. So yeah, it's just too risky to be over there anymore. So yeah, but yeah, try and understand what your wands will do when they run out of mana, just in case you do hit that point. And that's going to be more or less it for this one. I'll probably do a post commentary for the remaining videos that I do here. A lot of them will be continuing this playthrough. A bit of spoilers, it eventually does. I do die, so didn't get to the boss in this run. So at some point, if I'm going to do a tips on the rest of it, it'll have to be at another video. But I'll talk about that when we get there. So thanks for watching. In the next video, I'll go over what all these spells are. And yeah, cheers guys.